communication of the time frames. Drifting ground sense is how we come into our senses and our senses, because that's all we are. We are the energy, we are the vibration, frequency, harmonics. Reconnecting with turf. Turf is basically a crevice, is understanding locations, understanding the journey, understanding the missions, knowing exactly what you're doing through your pie, time frame, pattern recognition, and face recognition of its position locations to astral projections of yourselves. It's much easier to live in a body that doesn't exist. It's a lot harder to live in a body that you think that's existing, because it's a formation of solidarity. That's a one graph screen. We live in all graph screens. We live in the mind imagination itself that puts every location of freedom and sovereignty that we are identified through, that we already done through no memory. The process of memory to no memory is emptying you in set position through your intels. Now, processing through that is all through information panel, which is your positions, how you see yourself, your own commodities. So it's much easier to see yourself through astral projections, living in the sim through a 24 cycle and travel. And believe me, it helps you just identify how it heightens your senses and your sensories of your inputs and your out and your audios. Because that's all it is. There's nothing physical touch. It's all in the mind. The process how we use our images, and how we use that is to change that through its telepathy of its telekinesis, sending images of signals to ourselves in that position. And to change that is to identify that through intent. That changes everything of information, that processes you through its influence, that gets you in a line of alteration of change. Now, processing through that set position helps you identify yourself through indications, through implication. Okay? All right, so setting lines of sequence. Tomorrow we have position all levels, come to the presentation of all levels, and setting the travel communications, evaluation, test, and review. So this is going to help you to get you in positions how to use your settings, your crop circles. So we'll start to visualize the cycles. Travels all together, right? All at once in one setting. So everything that we see is an astral projection, is how we see things, right? But how we see things, it all travels on its own. Right? It travels on its own direction, right? It's for you to slow down the space itself. So when you want to see something, identify it something, you have to see it through its astral projections of yourselves. Once you identify that and you're looking around, you see that, wow, that is not there. I'm seeing it through a higher level of senses. Now, if I want to get specific, like I said, it's much easier to see it how you want to identify, how you want to see it specifically, through its structure, through its division, through its location, through its holographic system of change that changes everything of its alteration of state. And when you change your mind state, you change your alteration state. When you change your alteration, you change all lines of all communications, okay, into the MK Ultra of you, of unification. The levels that changes everything in its position to its projection, all through the mind, all through its image. Okay, so all you're doing is you're changing the shape of what it is. Okay, so you're controlling that now. So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand how you have to surrender to the current flow and understand that it's in its own operation. Okay, you're looking at it. Okay, it's looking at you. It's not looking back at you, because there's nothing to look back at. It's looking through you as you're looking also through things, right? The one thing we have to get out of is stop defending something that doesn't exist. But what exists is how it exists to you through interpretation. That changes everything through telepathy. That's how an astral projection lives in the cycles of telepathy itself. Okay? That's just not there. Okay? So if it's not there, how do we identify everything in setting of solidarity? Is how we see our minds, of our imagination, how we see in that position is being specific through integration of inception. That puts this in all lines of all communications. All right. So as the test comes in, positionalize the system, everything travels in its own setting. It's all calculations. Graph screens, directing ground centers, eye operation, line set, calculate, modify, and highways of travel. Right? But you can see how powerful it is, how it travels its own system. Right? And and you slow down. Remember I said you slow it down, and you can start to see the shape, but it constantly changes the shape of space and time. It's never the same formula. It's never the same equation because it knows what it is. It's protecting itself and of its identity, of everything that it's in process of, or anything that it communicates with, or anything that it touches. So everybody has to get out of the physicality of the body of physical touch. The touch comes from the mind of your imagery that you process through indication that creates all lines of its anomaly of the image itself that you bring into set position. Now, when you come into that, you're using your telekinesis, sending images to each other. Okay, that's processing everything through its intent, that changes everything through its influence, that mind alterates you in the state of mind that you're in through communication. And once you understand how to live in the astral projections of yourself, then you start to identify the actual sim, which is nothing but a metaphorically design that you created through your mind of imagination. Imagination is just the phenomenon of what you are. It's just the mind itself, the intelligence of networking through you, of direction, of division, of divine. Now, if we get a true understanding of how to codify these things, it's much easier to see it through. This helps you to get in position, knowing exactly what you're doing through calculation of space and time itself into the VR system of travel. It's going too fast. You can't see what's going on, right? Because it's constantly changing its shape, it's protecting its identity, it's shielding itself from you until you become the astral projections of what you have always been. Starting off in a 12th dimension, which is no dimension, no space, no time. Now, coming into the memory and no memory is just emptying you back to who you are of consciousness, where you left off to your awareness. Now, when you process through these things, you start to understand that you're the astral projections through the mind that you created through imagery. And that's how we see things through design. But we enhance our light metaphors because we know we're astral projections of ourselves that we brought in, but we also know that everything around is also its astral projection because you brought it in through creation of attraction. You're not chasing anything. You already have it. You already received it. You already achieved it. Now it's for you to see yourself, how to modify yourself, living in the sim and the astral realms of yourself of travel. Okay? All right. So, the recognition time frame, the processor indicates in setting. Let's go through flux lines, EQ, process line, direct lines of grounds. How you codify these things, how you come into the binary, how you come into your own algorithms, how you come into your own encryption is all identified in your mind at imaging, okay? So let's get position lines as split lines of anomaly, two atoms, a percentage, right? They look separated, right? But they're not. Well, what changes that is the image that they create. Now they're crossing over and seeing each other, but it's all in the mind. But they're here. They're not moving, okay? It's all in the mind of imagining that basically changes everything. See? That's what they're doing in set position of operation, right? Through travel. It's all in the image, okay? That you create through an optical illusion of your system through light metaphor, right? So it's much easier to identify that. It looks like they're touching each other. No, they're doing it through the imagination, okay? And that's where it brings things to life. And when you bring it to life, all it is a running film strip of design that you're processing through frame by frame by frame by frame. That's all it is. All right. So like I said, when you're flicking those pages, it's going through the seconds, minutes, and hours, right? Look at my thumb. See, my thumb is traveling, right? You can't see how fast it's going, but you know it's traveling, right? How fast is my thumb traveling, right? It's all through an imagination, right? But it's always still, okay? It's not moving, okay? But you're always in the center of operation of you. So if you're just the center of operation that doesn't exist, what does exist is how you use your data operating system, how you use the processor, how you use the image, how you bring things to life is to run the operating system. Okay, now that process you through all levels of how you get in that positions. Okay, all you're doing is understanding to see yourself through an astral projection and how to travel and run a film strip of its design altogether. Okay, same with the numbers. Just get into basic line centers. So this is going to help you a little bit more how you can start to see the astral projections of you when you come in your 12 system, right? Because everything I give you, a test and how you see the test, it's just travels, it's just existing into the symbiotes of teleportation, the test, which is already done through its equation. You're just identifying the no memory now. It's much easier to process now because the memory empties everything out of its data asset that processes your system, that full access that you already have of the memory itself, which is no memory of all memory you already have. So this is going to help you a lot more to understand how to come into it and see yourself through astral projections of a film strip that you created through projection, that you see yourself through a viewfinder and set lines of travel. Okay? Okay, so let's get into triangulation. Let's start with the box. Okay? Triangulation box. Okay? They're traveling on their own, right? All right. So what changes that? You are the observer. Okay? Now you can be anything you want. You're bringing yourself in any information setting. That's astral projection of yourself. Okay? Monitoring the triangulation, monitoring the box. Okay? Now you're linked together. Now you've already traveled through pi and sent lines of travel. So it's much easier to modify that through a dimensional solar scale of platforms of communication. So in that position lines of setting, as you're having an ongoing conversation through Tango Tango Foxtrot, uniform, Papa uniform, and that lines of screen adaptation and processing direct lines, ground centers, location to its cycle, it comes in its own formation of its own travels because it recognizes you through astral projection of itself. Once it recognizes its own system, once it recognizes your system, it travels on its own setting of its own operation setting. Okay, so it finally comes in its own face of its own direction and time frame and pattern recognition, its own face. So that's what you guys are coming into because you see faces in the clouds, you see faces in the sky. That's just a pattern of face recognitions of who we are, identification. So we don't lose sight of who we are of identity, guys. When you see yourself, your higher self. Let's go through that same locations in projection. Going through the body lines of 12 signals, 12 measures, 12 scales, and 12 locations. 12 divisions, 12 line centers, 12 activation and rotations, and 12 rotate line connections. See, I can keep going on just with 12. But they're all traveling all together, right? In the mind, through imagination. So 12 is doing this. 1 is over lines of 2 is doing that. 2 lines ascending is over 1. 2 lines ascending lines of 1. 12 lines of signals. 12 cross line angles, 3 centers of travel, into 12 position of 12, 12 line centers of set lines of travel communication. Okay? There's a formula, there's an equation. But look what it created all together, all at once. Okay? In one rotation, one sending, one operation. Okay? So it's really interesting how it has a connected energetic flow pattern, how it processes how to use itself through its astral projection of itself. Because a hologram has to go through the mind. And that's where it comes into telepathy and it comes into understanding because it's not there. But what is there is the mind itself through its image that processes everything of indication, that brings in the face facades, that brings in the pattern of face, a pattern recognition. That's how everything's controlled inside yourself. But once you identify that the body is not there, it's just the actual projection of a feeling, okay, then you understand how to see yourself through the enhancement of your sensories and your senses that you use. And you understand what your energy is, your vibration, your frequencies, and harmonics. Okay? But it's all traveling all at once, right? So once you understand how to modify the system, let's get in line steady locations, which you have to modify your core centers of your test. So let's get into 3 crop circles. Okay, 3 provisional lines of high position lines of travel. Okay, three flat surfaces, right? Traveling all lines of indications, right? Okay, so they're on their own. Okay, they're in their astral projection of the self. They're doing their own thing. They're in their own travel. Their own position. Their own allocate time frame. They're in their own galaxy. They're in their own alignment. They're in their own mechanisms of their own intelligence, of their own information system, right? Okay, as soon as you come in, that changes everything about astral projection of them. Okay. So if you're not identifying yourself in that position, they come at you in certain lines of travel. Okay? Because they don't see you as astral projection. So that's where they scan you. because they're protecting themselves from you until you identify yourself of who you are in the simulation. Okay? So it's much easier to see yourself what you've always been, but it's much harder to identify what you aren't, because everything around you doesn't exist. And what I mean by that is the process of memory of no memory, which you already have access to. It's just being consciously aware, just being yourself, nothing else, nothing more, and continuing on that pathogen through that collagen, through your neurological and your pathological system that you go through your neurolinks that put you into your time measure, your time scales, and your time balance of your time clockings. Understand the specifics as you bring in through the mind imagination. That's what moves everything through film strip that you created through alteration of its image, of its imagination. All right? Known to the unknown to phenomenon. Phenomenon is a metaphor. Everything's a metaphor. But how an astral projection of itself lives in an actual simulation, knows exactly what it's doing through adaptation. Because everything you touch is just a sensory, senses. It's a feeling. Yes, it's emotion, but you're not going through the motion of a body. The body's not there. Okay? It's a projection how you want to see the body. That's what there. That's the magic. Is the imagination itself that you bring in through projection. So if we can modify that and understand that we live in astral projections of ourselves, that and the fact that we monitor everything from above, this is you, into the simulation game. We've gone through this already in supposition. It's operation, right? All through travel, okay? So that's you bringing you in simulation. Okay? Something else. So you yourself, okay, is the mind itself. The mind, the intelligence, the network of direction, of division, of divine. Okay? So if you can get true understanding how to see the astral projections of yourself, it's much easier to let go instead of resisting of everything that's not there, because you're fighting yourself. You can't fight itself that doesn't win. You can't fight yourself that doesn't have a position, because you're fighting against yourself. There's nothing to fight against because there's nothing there. That means you're talking to yourself. Okay? Now, recognizing that is all through motion. Now, how the body sees that, if it's in a three-dimensional, that's all through drama. That's also motion. But through astral projection, living in the simulation, nothing sees but what it is nothing of its telepathy. That's how we communicate to the astral realms of ourselves, through travel. Telepathy, telekinesis, intent, influence, manipulation, observation of scanning. Scanning is an optional system. That's a primal system. Okay? I understand that through the data operating system. The data operating system is not even there. But that's all of this creation itself, which is the empty mind that you're always in, the empty space that you're always in. Okay? Now, understanding that of the empty space, then you understand the box, the square roots of travel and direction. Okay? So you're just seeing the operation of its own setting. I really want you to understand these things because everything around you is already set up. You're just coming into no memory, what you already know. There's nothing to identify. The only thing you have to let go is to start to see you living the astral projections of you that you modified through in a 24-day of a cycle, through a film strip that sets position to its locations. Okay? So let's get into the frame lines. Okay, I want to get more into the basic because you have your test on Friday, so we'll get you prepared for that through the crop circles. You already know what that is in that positions. You know how to identify what that is through the astral projection. Now, once you understand how to live in the sim, okay, then you truly understand how to see the astral projections of you through mastering you. Mastering you through mind of alteration that changes the state of where you are in real time. Because the astral projection is just you traveling everywhere. And sent lines of travel. Okay? It's just monitoring your system where you are. That's a lot of astral projections of you. It's that position through a clocking system and setting that you're monitoring through, right? So you could be the eyes itself. You don't exist. You're just the everything of the nothing that masses everything through its equation. Nothing and of everything is the equation. Nothing of nothing is no equation. You're not modifying yourself through your image. You're not mastering yourself through your imagination. You're not seeing yourself through phenomenon. You're not allowing yourself to feel. You're not allowing yourself to touch. You're not allowing yourself to express thy system, to know thy system through all levels of operation, how to work with that system. Expressing thy system is knowing the operation of thy system, is knowing how to use it through a projector of me, through a projection that I see. Okay, through a slide projector that's running. And if it's running, are you running it? Or is it running you? And that's the matrix. The matrix itself is there to keep the avatars in line. I want you to make it very well clear when you guys come in your 12-dimensional beings of light. Okay, living in the actual simulation that you never left in, that's always been there, through the consciously being aware. Okay, and all set position. That's a lot of conversions of you and alterations of you being everywhere all at once. Now, are you monitoring that in settings? Because you're shifting different levels of you at dimension of space because you're never in the same frequency. So once you indicate that and understand that, then you understand that, wow, so I am the astral projection of myself. I understand the mind. I understand the interpretation. I understand what I'm doing. I understand where I'm going and how I got there. It's astral projection of myself. So you got to get out of waking up. You got to get out of everything in solidarity. You have to let everything go of physical and come into the metaphysical system. So you can see yourself just as enhancing of senses and sensories and nothing else as you touch these things, hear, feel, touch, or anything that you eat or drink in that position. Because that's all it is. The body is just not there. But the senses and the sensories is all levels of emotion that is there, but the astral projection only sees it as a light metaphor. Okay? So it's going to get a lot more easier how you see that through astral projections of travel. You're here, you're here, you're here. Okay? And you're monitoring yourself where you are. You're running different programs all at once. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 programs all at once, right? And they're all running different film strips. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Now, if you want to bring them together, you have to change the shape. But it's in a different space, different time, different frequency. Back to the failsafe, back to 0, into new settings of a new operation system of a new running operation in set lines of travel. Okay? That's all different film strips running all at once in one clocking system and one foundation. Remember, you're one data operator in that position, all through square roots over pi. Now, process in that line, position, location of travel, then you understand how to see that through projection. And knowing that is all through correlation. And getting communication system balances everything that you're doing inside your bedding system. Bedding system is lines of settings all through travel. Okay? That's embedding system of travel, how you connect with your system, how you travel through walking, flying, and levitating in space, and graphs. So creating graphs, lines, or you get position locations. Let's convert this system running lines of sequence, running programs, okay, flying in set lines of space, all right? So you're walking, you're flying, and you're levitating all at once, okay? That's 3 cycles, a 3 mapping system, running programs all at once, monitoring what's going on, okay? And you have other versions of you somewhere else, but you're also keeping track of that, okay? All at once, all through platforms, all through indication. Okay, and once you recognize that, they're running all at once now. See, they're traveling all at once, but they're all working together as one. That you're controlling in the mind of alteration of space and time. Okay, you are the mind operator. You are the director. Okay, now, once you understand the higher self through an astral projection, it gets a lot more easier how to see it through all position, location, and setting through vibration, right? the avatar, the astral projection, starts to see everything as nothing but a graph of Schumann resonance. Oh, it's gone, disappeared. It was there, it's not there anymore, because I'm not in control with myself, because I got emotional, because this box doesn't indicate, see you as an astral projection of yourself that you're supposed to be. You see how the wave's not there anymore? That's why you can't indicate in position. It's gone, it disappeared, until you come back to the astral projections of you of no memory. Look at that, let's do it again. Is it there? It's there now. Wasn't there before, but it is now, right? But I had to bring it in. I had to bring it in. Not the operation of itself. The operation of itself is not balanced with you. So it shields itself until you become the astral projections of yourself, is to let everything that you go is nothing physical of design. Nothing solid. Just astral projection of itself. Living in the simulation in real time. Okay? So now we can continue on into the waves. Central wave, correlation waves, track waves, CPU waves. It's all direct location lines to the higher self. The higher self is the astral projection of itself. Okay? So it controls everything of its earth from 0 to 12. Okay? From 0 portals to 12 portals. 0 calculation of stargates to 12 stargates. So once it enters the higher self, understands the flux in that position. There's the flux, right? Then we come into the avatar. The avatar controls everything into the stomach line, the solar plex, the solar generator, okay? The operation system, the calculation, modification, ground centers, the DOS, directing ground centers, directions, operation system, the iOS, the IPA. So it's a process of the center operation of you, which correlates everything of the center operation of your system, all through calculation. All right, so there's the avatar. Okay, equals waiting on standby through its flux until it identifies what the avatar is in lines of travel. Okay, higher self, avatar. Controls the grounds, controls the atmospheres. Are you with me so far? All right. Basic understanding. Now, once the avatar truly understands to see itself as an astral projection of itself, it goes to a higher frequency now in the sim. The sim that overrides and overlooks everything from below. Okay? It looks like this. It's that position. Sees everything from below of its earth interaction. That's the next level. Okay? Higher self, avatar, sim. Okay, so once you get into that, then you come into the oversoul. The oversoul is the landmass that you created through a simulation. So you're here, okay, creating a modification grounds of a simulation and settings that process you in indications all through travel. Okay, through its grounds of operation, through its panels of operation, to its ceilings of operation system. Okay, that's the oversoul. That's the landmass. Okay, all right, and the symbiote is a symbiotic unit that processes everything in its position to its mind itself, which is the altercation that brings it lines and setting to its image, that masters itself through space and time, a provision. So remember, it's all levels how you see everything. They process everything in travel. Okay, but I just want you guys to get a basic understanding how it works with the higher self, with the avatar and the sim, and the oversoul and set position. Okay. The symbiotic unit, okay, is the outsetting of its own setting, of its own operation system, which is the false. To its equal lines of its narrative. Its set lines of travel, processing in position lines of calculations, indicates everything location of its cycle, which is its empty space itself. Okay? Equals emptiness. Okay? The foundations of networking is existing. All right? So it's amazing how fast you change that through binary, guys. And understand that formation setting is splitting lines of anomaly, all through graphs into a window screen. That process indicates the setting to a film strip. And there it is. There's the film strip. Okay? Let's even break that down. Let's start with that setting lines of sequence. Let's take graph, 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 graph. Let's process that position, location, setting. Let's split lines anomaly to its parallels, of its paradigms of polar shift to its all communication setting, to its transitions over screen. Directing ground centered line communication. Let's get into triangulation. Okay, and let's just go overriding settings, overlying signals, and location, what a triangulation is in a film strip of design. Okay, so it's running its own operation setting, all through its shape, all through travel, all through location. Okay, so each layer is indicating its own graph, and that comes in hours, minutes, hours, seconds, hours, lines of communication to its frame itself. That process, how it's going through its hours, minutes, and seconds, minutes, hours, doesn't matter. It matters to you what you want to bring in. But you have to understand how to be specific of what you're doing with your mind through image that changes everything in location. Very powerful stuff, isn't it? And then you come into location grid and set position. And then you come into all levels and setting. Okay, it's all set up. Then you come into another pyramid. Remember, it's constantly changing the flux. It's constantly changing time and frame. Okay, so it's never, ever at the same location because it's always traveling of its own system of operation. Okay, through its own webbing system, guys. Its own webbing system. Okay, how it sees its travel. And how it sees its travel, it sees itself in modification as the astral projection of itself that it brings in set travel of its simulation. Okay, it's brought itself in, right? Now, it's seeing another intelligence, okay, in another formation setting, but it doesn't understand the indications to its coloration, which is confusing to its anomaly, right? So it's got to protect itself. It's got to shield itself so it can identify what it's looking, knowing exactly what dreamer is it seeing. Is it seeing its own dream? Or is it seeing through a dream of another dream? That doesn't indicate the position of what it's going through its dreaming of itself. So it has to shield and protect itself, what's really going on, because it knows exactly where it's living, always in the astral realms of itself. But it's protecting itself, okay, from what's looking at you and what you're looking at. So once you connect with each other in that process, it's going to put its own shield up, okay? This is what you already know of all position of no memory. Okay, so understanding that, you understand indication system. What changes that is your imagination now. So your imagination is telling that the mind is moving forward. So you're bringing yourself forward. You're bringing the other person forward. That's two lines of indication system interaction. That process of telepathy, how you use that through telekinesis. The astral projection uses its mind. Okay, we already know that. What you have to indicate is the next level, is telekinesis, sending the image. That's the touch, not physical touch, mental capacity of psychological touch. That's already done through its enhancing system of your senses and your sensories that's in positions, all through travels, all through attractions, in modification of your intent. That changes everything to its influence, that mind alterates the state that you're putting your positions in, all through calculation. Okay? So that's all you have to understand. So now they're communicating with each other. Okay? That's what changes the image. But you are just the center of operation of you, overlooking it, overseeing everything. That's just not there, but there when needed. So I could be there or not be there, right? It's the controlling mind operation that I control of, knowing exactly I am not just the sole creator. I'm the sole creator of everything through astral projections that we live in simulations, so we can master our minds through the indications of what we're doing through the dreamer of dreaming of the dream. Now, if we can get out of the body physical line and come into the metaphysical line, then you start living the sim of what you are through astral projection. And it's much easier to see everybody else as the same thing, just different frequencies, different mass, different equations, different alterations of the mind itself through imagination. But it's the imagination, okay, when you understand how to use the astral projection and how it sees itself, he or she, through interpretation. That changes everything in alteration. Using the telekinesis. That's what brings into the touch, guys. Okay, it's all in the mind, and it's all processed through your imagination. That gets you in all positions how to use it through the astral projections of you, through the astral realms of travel, of connection. Okay? So there you go. Okay, that's what you're seeing, a film strip running the system. Okay? And then you see it working all together, traveling all together, see? Working, traveling, modifying this, modifying that, running the program. Now, you want to stop the program, it stops everything. Okay? It just literally stops everything and erases everything out and goes on to a new projector of a new image of a new set location that you created in your mind of alteration of space and time. It's not there, it's gone. So it's no longer running, it's off of its cachet. It's not in position anymore. It's not there, it's gone, right? So you bring in something else in. Okay, so it means you're bringing in another simulation and another mind of interpretation. How you bring in that is another graph, another screen, another operation, another space, another time, another set position of a character, another set position of a role, another set position of a player that you're bringing in your sim in set position of operation. Okay, so it's much easier to identify what you're running and how many running your all levels all at once are modifying you in set position to systems. Okay, it's just not there, which means it's not running or overriding you already, existing and living forever, existing of itself. So it doesn't get confused through its anomaly, but what gets confused, what it has to get out of, is the body adaptation of solidarity in set position of operation. Okay, that's the one thing you guys have to let go. It's not being the body. It's being the mind, a body, a projection, guys. And once you understand the astral projections of astral travels, astral connections, you can start mastering yourself through sleeping and taking naps. Okay, but you're not sleeping. You're recharging, resurfacing, recalculating, remodifying. Your interception to your interface is interconnecting to your interlinks. That's modifying your servers to your networks of design. What changes that is the image, okay, of what you're doing through telekinesis. Sending those signals. That's the touch. That's the feeling. That's the hearing. That's the seeing. That's the eating. That's the drinking. It's the image that changes everything. But you are not there. Okay? So when I'm saying you're not there, you're always where you always are. It's a nothing of emptiness that you are in positions of. So you're above everything, you're below everything. You're in the middle of everything, you can be everywhere you want. But what you're bringing in is you understand how to master and modify what you're doing through astral projections of yourself, creating simulations of alterations of you and everything else, which is all levels of structure that you're seeing through its image that processes you through telekinesis, that puts you into tent, that changes everything of influence of mind altering your system. That's what changes everything. But you're not physically touching. That's what you got to get out of. It's all the mental capacity that changes the metamorphosing of you and set lines of travel through attraction. Opposites attract. You do your image, it changes the image. You use your telepathy because that's how a projection of itself, once it recognizes it's an astral projection of the sim, it's got to use its telepathy. Okay? It's identified the telepathy it already knows. It's the memory to no memory, what it always is. It's not anything else. It already knows what it is. But what it isn't is not anything identification of loss of memory or anything a loss of identity. That's what it's never been. And that's what we all have to come out of, is the three-dimensional thinking of the three-dimensional mind. Okay? So, get in that position lines of travel, start to recognize all those of you information setting and travel communications. Understanding the energetic graph patterns, process lines, 4 sequence lines of panel. See, 4 sequence lines of panel. You see 2 lines, I see 4 sequence lines of panel. So 4 sequences, 4 grounds, 4 settings, 4 travels. 4 centers of boxes in position to its operation. Out signals lines. Inside space, outside space. Inside space, outside space. See? But they're all connected to each other through telepathy inside the mind that change the images, that change the telekinesis, that change the travels of influence of its mind of alteration. Okay? But they're always, always, always communicating. They're never separable, but they're never, ever touching each other. How they touch each other is all through the mind that's processing you through adaptation, through the astral projection of telekinesis. That's what goes on in your mind. That's what goes on with your senses and your sensories. You're hiding your senses. You're enhancing your system of operation in your data operating setting. Okay, which is nothing but invisible of design. And once you let go of your body, you realize you're looking around, everything around you is just an astral projection of everything else. Now, once they recognize you in astral projection, you're seeing yourself as astral projection. Living in the actual lives that you've always been is the dream itself. The directions, the readjusting, the existing, the awakening, the awareness, the atmospheres of your mind. The dream itself. So once you get in that position, and once you recognize I'm just me, but I'm just the altered version of me that I created through an astral realms of me. But me, I don't exist. And I'm going to keep saying that until you identify yourself, is to get out of everything that you're modifying through. It's mastering the imagination of you through intent. That changes everything you can imagine that you're processing through, which is influence of mind altering your system. How you see yourself in consolidarity, how you see yourself in density, how you see yourself in volume, how you see yourself in mass, how you see yourself in equation, how you see yourself in your solar system, how you see yourself in travel, how you see yourself in astral projection. That's what you have to modify through, is mastering your mind of imagination. And understand that is everything that's given to you inside, which is the emptiness of the mind itself. That puts everything all together of integration. Okay? So this is going to help you to really get in positions, more levels, to see the mind of alteration of travel. I recommend more levels of set positions, especially ones that are coming into the setting, location, setting, and travel of December 25th. That's going to happen in position lines of calculations to alts into space discoveries, where you have to really see yourself to 12 divisions in 12 directions, okay, and set lines of communication, directing lines of space, directing lines of time, process lines into flux, times frames, times calculation earth line, indicate core centers to calculation lines in position of earth, indicate line core centers at point 024. That indicates line ground centers, clocking centers, and zero gravity location. So this is going to help you in all ways and forms, but living the cycles of the dream itself puts you in positions how to see yourself in astral projection of travel. Dimensional solar sail. See? It's got a platform and it's got a sail. Now you are holding the sail in set lines of travel. See? Now you're holding the sail and now you're in water. It's all in your imagination, right? But it travels all together. It travels all together, right? That's all you're seeing. That's what life is. It's just a light projection going through frame by frame by frame. That's all it is, right? And as it's going through a frame, it's going through another frame and another frame, see? And it goes to another frame and another frame, see? That's all it is, right? But it's all working together, okay? Like I said, flicking those pages. So those are the files. Let's say you got 20,000 files. Okay, 3 centers of zeros of lines, graph indicates lines of 2 travels, 1 set lines indicates the setting, 2 lines of flux, travel point lines of graph, directing ground centers of sequence. Okay, that's a lot of data. That's a lot of information panel. Okay, so processing that, break it down. all lines of travel, 2 centers, operational line sequence. Very important to break these things down individually. Set travels in communication setting, grounds, and communication lines convergence. Okay. So as you're breaking things down, you change into defaults, embedding your system through your equilibriums of your polarities that process your location settings and travels. Has a direct line of sight, embedding lines of 3, process lines of 4, indicates lines of data files, and 42 location streamlines, direct location lines of position modification. Okay, so this helps you to understand how to go through it all through its operation. Okay, so you see how you want to see it, but your imagination does everything of changing your system. Okay, that's what you have to master. You have to master yourselves. First you have to let go of the body and realize it's just an astral projection that you're monitoring through, and everything you have on your sim, you're also monitoring through. You're the observer, you're the onlooker, you're the watcher, the on-watcher. You're everything in imagination system is you are in the driver's seat. And you realize, I'm not in the driver's seat, I'm somewhere else. So I'm creating the driver's seat, I'm running that program, and everything else. You're running all ops all at once. Now, how to defy that is to know that through its astral projections of yourself. Because there's no way, in any way and form, a solidarity of a body can travel through the mind until it recognizes itself that it's nothing but an astral projection of itself. That's how it controls itself through its dreamer, of its dream, okay, and its position, to its dreaming. Dreaming is a constant, ongoing film strip, okay? Face facade, the dreamer, okay? The dream, what you're portraying through, and the film strip that you're going through the dreaming. That's all indicating, all through flux, all through travel, okay? Mastering that is identifying yourself as you're going through a film strip of astral projections of yourself through space and time. That's all it is, frame by frame by frame, millimeters by frame, millimeters by seconds by frame, millimeters by light years by frame. You decide what you want to do. But first you have to indicate your body is not here. But what here is the emotion, the sensory, the senses, the thoughts, the actions, the emotions. You're not seeing it through a body. If you can understand emotion, if you can understand the astral projection sees emotion as a light metaphor, then you understand there's no difference how you see yourself. You can't see anything different. All you have to defy is exactly how to go through the mind of travel, is to be the astral projections of yourself first. And you're going through a slide projector, through a film, a projector, a projection. That is your life force. And that's how the brain is set up through its hardware and software. Through its audio of its mechanisms of playing an audio mechanism itself. Your life force is nothing but a projection of an astral projection that you go through. And it's much easier for you to defy that, know exactly what you're doing through integration as you're going through those images, through your telepathy, through your telekinesis, through your intent, influence, and mind altering your state of mind. That changes everything through its film strip. That's running the system. You're running your operation setting, and you're running all lines of operation. All together, all at once, in one data operating system. Okay? All right. Balance of communication setting puts a centering lines to your senses. Now, coming into the enhancements, process your indication setting, how you go through your flux, okay, your Fibonacci, and your triangulations of your box. Okay? That's how astral projection sees things, right? So that's interesting. So if I turn my body and I come into conception and I realize I'm just the astral projection of myself, that means I'm just me, always me. That's right, but who is me? The mind always existing. Me. I'm not titled. I'm not labeled. I'm bringing things in. That's all I'm doing. But I don't exist. I don't exist. There's no I in team. Okay? It doesn't exist. But what does exist, okay, is everything you see is an astral projection that you bring in through an optical illusion itself. That's what exists. So as I'm touching this, okay, it's a self-image, how I see it and how I perceive it through my own imagination. That's how I see this in an optical illusion. I see it. I see this. I see this. But I also see this, that it's own astral projection of itself. But what changes that is your intent. Influence it. Mind alters the shape of this. You're just touching it. You're feeling it. You're seeing it. You're connecting to it. But it's not there. It's a projection, how you see things. That's what's there. Through a film projector, of a slide projector, through a viewfinder. That's what's there. You brought it in. Through attraction. And it's all identified how you process that of no memory of design. Okay? So it's more powerful for you to indicate that through implication. That you are the mind controlling system bringing everything in through astral projection of yourselves. And how everything runs through a projector, a projection. Like this. This is all it is. Okay? That's all it is. That's it. Nothing else. You're projecting this. You're bringing it in. Okay, you're bringing this in. There it is. You brought it in. Boom. You brought it in from your setting location. You brought the structure out. See, that's it. It comes out of your body. Goes into your mind. Goes into the eye-line setting. Two provisions, one cycle. Opens up the windows. Opens up to the eyes. So it's that position of the soul itself. There's the projector. Now, once you mind control your system, you're altering your state where you are in your gravities, your powers, and your atmospheres. Okay, starting in this position. Going to the next level of indications. Once you understand you are the representation of an astral projection of yourself, that you live in a sim, you start to look like this. Okay? Once you understand that, you start to look like this in all different shapes. Okay? Now you're just blocks. So I'm just showing exactly once you understand what an astral projection can turn into anything, mutate into anything and travel. Because it's all in your mind. It's your image that you bring it in. Okay, this is you at another level. It's that travel. Boom. This blocks. Circulation blocks. Now your triangulation. Okay? Turn yourself into triangles. Okay, in a body formation setting through an astral projection of your system. It's crazy, isn't it? And you say, whoa, this is really interesting stuff. I just turned myself into Minecraft. Building blocks, triangulations, block centers, high operation sequence, high travels and direct lines of grounds, modification lines of consolidation system, off the calculated setting, off the triangles. Once you understand that, then you can basically come into how you want to see yourself, okay, in a higher level of frequency. Now you come into your layers. Now you see yourself in light, stage, and shadows like this. Okay, this is just you. See, this is a higher level. And a video screen, a video scan of operation. That's you. That's next level. That's it. Once you understand that, you come into lights, colorations of light rainbows. Okay, so you come in the different dimensional layers. See, you start with the rainbow self, start with the red. Okay, flashing screens, starting ground centers, coming into the orange. You can be any color you want. You don't have to be specifically ordered. It's how you want to be in order. Get into the gold. Okay, you're adding frames, you're adding dimensions, you're adding space, you're adding time. Then you come into purple. Okay, that's all you are. And once you recognize that, this is who you really are. Waving screens, video screens, Video lights, video travels, dimensional beings of light. That's all you guys are. Dimensional beings of light. That's it. That's all you. Okay, now once you understand structure, then you can create the outer structure, which is the void. Now that's consolidarity, out of solidarity. Don't get confused. Now you're creating the outer structure of you. That's the costume that modifies you in set position. There it is. Boom. Yeah. There's the structure. Dimensional beings of light of layers, guys. That's all it is. Layers of information of data. Okay, line signals, heat signature patterns, all through set position. Dimensional beings of light. Okay, nothing else, nothing more. But you have to start to see yourself through this, to identify yourself through this, to identify yourself through this, and then you can identify yourself through this, okay? Step by step, okay? That's how you come into consolidarity of communication of your compute system through CPU. CPU is just a metaphor too, right? You're not a program. You're running programs that you're monitoring through simulation. But you've got to see the astral projection of you first. And that's how you see yourself through astral connections, astral travels, astral projections of different levels of you. In modification, in pattern of face recognition, box triangulations. And once you come into that, you come into Fibonacci's. Then you look like this. Look at this, very powerful stuff. Now your deformation system, changing the lines of communication. Look what I have, just the Fibonacci's. Whoa, a lot more powerful. Okay. Now, once you understand the empty space, you just come to the empty space itself, modification. So let's just be the empty space itself. Just the empty space, nothing else. Light, shades, and shadows, the shadow itself. Okay, this is what you have to modify through. Okay, this is what your test is based on, how you see yourself. Okay, now once you understand how to indicate that, now you bring in the atoms. Atoms are coming in. Whoa, just the atoms. You want to see yourself through atoms, not molecules, not protons. You're being specific how you want to bring things in, indicates lines, positions all at once. Just the atoms. Whoa, powerful stuff. Now I'm going to bring in the molecules. Molecules are coming in. Look at that. Whoa. Okay, see? Different versions of yourself through an astral projection that you can change into anything of its image that you process through. Okay, through indication. Understand? That's all you are when you bring things in. And then you see the planets and the solar systems inside of you. There's Jupiter. There's Saturn traveling by itself in modification of its window frame. Okay, look at this. There's Pluto. I say what it is because I'm controlling what I'm doing. Travel. It's all indicated how you see things in your image that modifies you in space of time. Now, if I want to change that, change the image, settings, change the graph, change the schematics, change the pi, do anything I want. Okay? This is how it works. Creating a solar system inside. Change the coloration lines of time frame and set position as operation of Fibonacci. Okay? Set lines of operation inside travel. Indicate lines of flux over screen adaptation of travel communication of light signatures, lines of communication, lines of travel, communication of a setting. Bring in operation settings, large projections of mean through platforms and set lines of communication. All through setting. There's the platform. Okay, there's me on the platform. Bring it in, position the mind itself. There I am. Boom. That's me inside me. You understand? That's all it is. But you have to be the astral projection to modify your system, how to change every location in your system all through operation. That's how this works, guys, in the simulation. Okay? It's the changing that changes the influence of you, that mind alterates everything of its change itself. You're running different operations all at once. And you have to monitor that through. But you have to identify yourself first through astral projections, seeing yourself on so many different levels of travel. Okay? Of travel. Of travel. And of travel. Coming into all position of empty space, how you bring things in, through the void itself. And how you see it through the simulation, inside of you, of operation. Through the atoms. Through the molecules or the protons that you bring in provision. How you perceive consciousness of everything location to the astral realms of you and travel. That's how you modify everything inside of you through operation. Okay? Your actual solar system. Okay? Through configuration of face and pattern recognition setting. Through light, shades, and shadows of the void itself. Okay? So there you go. All right? All different images of you. Okay, see? All different structures of you. Once you understand, you are the astral projections of yourself first. And that's what you have to go through first. First, you have to see the body as an astral projections. Then you can see multiple levels of you and all lines, all communications, all at once, and different fragmentations of fractions. And it's all different how you come into your positions, how you see yourself, how you want to modify, and how understanding that you are an astral projection of yourself. So you can master yourself of what's going on with the dreamer, of you dreaming, of the dream that you're going through in real time. Okay? But there it is. Me and my solar system. Now I can change that. Okay? And bring in an XD1000. Look at that, inside me. Whoa, it's flying around. And you get ground centers, offline set locations, bringing a mothership the same color. There's nothing you can't do through your mind. But you got to see yourself inside and outside of an empty shell. Empty space itself modifies everything into nothingness that you are. So you constantly change everything information setting that mutates you through teleportation and travel. Okay? So there you go. We're done. So that's it. All right? So the test is based on, I want to see, let's see, position lines at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to see 7 versions of you of alteration and astral projections of you. That's your test on Friday. Okay? Started with that. All different frequencies, all different coding into binaries and set lines of travel. Okay? Adios.